I'm going to try to do this quicker than I did on Facebook. Facebook was about 18 minutes. And basically, it's like the state of the union for young people. Having worked with the youth for over 2.5 decades now, I can tell you that I've seen what's going on. I've seen the trend in that demographic, in that age group. And I can honestly say they're where they are because we've trained them to be there. And this is not about blame. This isn't, you can see the TED Talks with Sir Ken Robinson. You can talking about like education's broken, and I agree on most of his points. Actually, I don't think there's any I disagree on. And then also, you talk about Simon Sinek talking about like how kids are addicted to the neurochemical conditioning of social media. True, and I don't disagree with any of the things that he has to say either. Now, here's how it relates to the last-minute momentum that we're teaching our kids all the time. It's like almost that overnight success because they've seen that advertised. Oh, they're overnight success. You can be a gazillionaire in like 2 seconds. But they don't see the backstory. They don't see like it's like Star Wars. We start on like the 4th or 5th episode or the 3rd episode or whatever, and we really haven't seen what happened before that. So we think this is the reality of where it is, and it just happened immediately. And so it's a mess. And if you're trying to also figure out how to get to an elite level, whether it's academically, athletically, or performing arts, any of those things, it doesn't happen overnight. We all know that. It doesn't matter how much talent you have within reason. You're not just going to wake up and perform. That's not how it happens. And Michael Jordan, or LeBron James, or any of these people, Steph Curry, they're not just craving the pressure situation. They want to keep winning and growing, but they're putting in the work. Their preparedness is through the roof. The better you get, the better you better get, right? That's what they say. And the funny thing is, we're missing this. Another way to compare this is I remember one of the movies I saw, Two for the Money, with Matthew McConaughey and Al Pacino. And in there, Al Pacino is at an AA meeting. He stands up and he's like, I'm 19 years clean. And he's like, I haven't touched a drink, I haven't gambled, I haven't done any of that stuff in 19 years. And they're like, they're clapping, right? They're like, oh, good job. And then all of a sudden he's like, listen, I just want to let you know, the problem with me, the problem with you, the problem with everybody in this room is that we're all lemons. And what he's talking about is that they're addicted to the dramatic. They want to push themselves to the brink of complete failure, complete like loss, total loss, where everybody basically like leaves them be in order to show themselves that they're worth something, that they can still make it, that this too shall pass, that regardless how dramatic the failure is, or better or worse, if they make it through and they actually win, they succeed, they hit that lottery, that's almost even worse, because then like you're reinforcing that belief that I can wait to the last second, put myself in a terrible position, not be prepared, and I can still make it through. And that's what's going on in schools. And in schools, it's just like this. It's a learned behavior. You've got the pass it anyway process, meaning we have these marking periods and we have these big tests, and then we say, well, yeah, you gotta do good on the test, like do good on the test. And then all of a sudden we have some tests where we say, well, that test doesn't matter. Like you can actually opt out for that test if you don't want to take it. But in business, testing is important. Testing is where we find out whether or not your marketing works, whether or not your offer works, whether or not you're delivering on the service that you promised to help execute on for somebody. That's testing. And it's exciting. It's testing because you're like, wow, what do I need to change? How do I need to tweak this? And it's like you're adapting, you're overcoming. It reminds me of like somebody who's really being creative and they're trying to like solve a problem. That's an exciting thing. That's not something to run away from. That's something to run towards. But start now. Don't wait and put it off. The other thing I like to say is like I compare elite performance to and being exceptional with growth as it relates to to jumping on a treadmill. Now, once you're jumping on a treadmill, once you get to like the D1 level athletically, or you get to an Ivy League or comparative level academically, or you get to like a Juilliard or something like that, performing arts wise, at that point, like the pitch is like that. It's a fever pitch, right? Baseball movie. It's like that, and it's going really fast. And you might build up to it, and then you get to be able to sustain it, and then all of a sudden, like, you step off for a second because you're just chilling for a minute. But then you jump back on it, and boom, you fall flat on your face. You get back up, and you're like, wow, that hurt. Wipe the blood off your nose, get back on it, boom, again. But if you keep at it, eventually you time it right, and then you get it going. The then you start to get tired and you got to take a break, so you step off. But this time you've learned your lesson. You're not stepping off for quite as long, and you get back on it, and like you kind of stumble at first, but then you kind of gain your balance. And the point is, like, you can't step off that performance, that high performance, that success, that execution treadmill for too long, because if you do, you're going to lose the timing of it. You're going to lose the sequence of it. You're not going to be able to get right back into the rhythm super quick because it's at a high level. It's not at the baseline entry level. You know, the threshold is that much higher. So when the threshold keeps going up and up and up, you just can't take breaks forever. It's just not what you need to do. You need to get better at getting better. Or look at it this way. If you're somebody who, you know, if you don't understand that side, let's say everybody has a cell phone at this point. Like, let's say you just got a new cell phone and you needed somebody to turn it on. Now, if you go to the cell phone store and because you don't know what you're doing, and you decide you're going to have somebody turn it on, I bet you they've probably already read the directions. Now, if they haven't read the directions, it's going to take a while. So if they try to turn it on first, they might screw up something, and then all of a sudden it's going to take that much longer. Or they've read the directions, and now it takes a little while. But if they've read the directions and they've done it before, it's going to take less time. And the more they've done that with your brand of phone, the better they're going to be at troubleshooting and like speeding up that cycle time. Well, that's just like everything else. That's just like learning how to learn as well, and learning how to establish habits and critical thinking, decision making, all these things. It's so important to understand that. It's important to understand. Some people are like, well, it's like riding a bike. Like, once you know how to perform it, you always know how to perform it. Well, kind of within reason. But it's like learning how to ride a bike, and you know how to ride a three-wheel bike. But then, like, if the longer the gap, it's more like going down to a two-wheel or a unicycle. And obviously, like, it's the same, but it's different. So the next piece of it is, you know, we reinforce this all the time by, like, even through the things that we get excited about, like the 2-minute drill in football. Like, all right, 2-minute warning. It's like a warning. Wow, this is important. You better pay attention. Like, if you've been screwing off the entire game, like, if you get it under control right now, you're going to be able to win. No, if you're down by like 40 points by the 2-minute drill, you cannot make it up. It's not possible, right? So what do you do at that point? 2-minute drill at that point doesn't even matter, right? Let's just get off the field. Let's get to the next game because this one is over. So there's lessons to learn there, but we're not even talking about that. And people that falls on deaf ears because they think like, oh, it's so exciting when you see like somebody dramatically come back. Like, I remember one year the Houston Oilers and Buffalo were playing, and one team was up by a ton, and then all of a sudden the other team comes all the way back from like, I don't know, they were down by 5 touchdowns, I think. They came all the way back and they won, and it was so memorable. But, you know, it would have been a little bit better for the following week, possibly, to create a win in each possession and not have it be so dramatic and have to rely on that because it's stress. Next thing is recognizing the basic human needs are really what are driving our actions. Once we realize our need for variety and certainty, connection and love and significance and growth and contribution, all these different things are the reason why we want to start getting a flywheel going and different things like that. So understand, like, one of the things that that is important is knowing which one or two of those human needs really are driving your decision, and then moving forward from there. The next piece of it is understanding the kind of paradox between a crunch versus expansion. A lot of people they'll crunch for the end of a marking period to get ready for a test. Well, that's not expansion. It's not the same thing. Tests are meant to give you insight and then expand your horizons, expand your learning and things like that. And so they're not the same. Usually when you crunch for something or you're really, really trying to squeeze a ton of stuff into a short amount, it's not sustainable. It doesn't stay there, right? If you stuff everything into a box, it explodes out when you try to open it back up again. And that's not really super functional. And it's not where expansion and growth are. So if you're really trying to do things at a high level, you wouldn't do that. It'd be the opposite. You might have short sprints where you learn a ton, like when you kind of get yourself into the right groove. That's a little bit different. It's not the same thing. The next thing is the understanding that concept that, like, we've heard from our grandmother or grandfather, this too shall pass. Well, we can survive just about anything. and everything, but do you want to? Like, where's the value in that? There's value in understanding that this too shall pass, you will survive this. But honestly, if you really want something, then you should prepare in advance so that you don't have to survive it, that it can help you thrive. And that's the difference. And kind of clouding that a little bit is when we pass somebody in school and they haven't earned it, or we kind of like let somebody go through. I've had people allow me to do this in life, and I know it definitely wasn't, I was always grateful for it, but at the same time, like, how much motivation did it give you to be better the next time? It's confusing, so it's like you're appreciative of it, you're grateful of it, but if you're truly appreciative, truly grateful, then you try to write the course, like you try to take corrective action the next time to make sure that that's not the same situation. So that's another piece of the puzzle. The next one is taste for the dramatic. People get addicted to this, and it ties into the next thing we're going to talk about is neurochemical conditioning. Like, they get addicted to that drama. It's on TV, it's on Instagram, it's on Facebook, it's everywhere. And unfortunately, people like being entertained, but you know what's not entertaining is when the pain is real in your life, and because we've been self-sabotaging, or we've been sabotaging, other people. It's just not good. It's not a good way to go about things. It might be funny for a second, it might like get your attention for a second, but it's just not the way to sustainably grow and go about things. So get rid of that taste for the dramatic, or find a better, more positive way to be dramatic, and then recognize neurochemical conditioning is real, and it's not just like the chemicals from outside, it's the chemicals that we produce ourselves that we get used to, like triggering ourselves. The next thing is countdowns you can count on. So one of the other reasons why pressure builds, and it's a good thing sales-wise, is people like that pressure. They like that feeling of scarcity. They like that feeling of exclusivity. And they also like the motivation that comes with the countdown, like that 2-minute warning, like, ooh, here's a warning, you only got 2 minutes to win. Now all of a sudden it's like, ooh, that's your call to action. But there really was a call to action at the beginning of the game, or at halftime. There was a call to action at the beginning of the season. There was a call to action at the end of the last season. There's a million calls to action. Which ones are you paying the most attention to? The most attention should be paid to where you are now. So if you're in the 2-minute window, okay, you better pay attention, be in that present moment now, just like they say in Peaceful Warrior. But when you were in the off season, that was the place to be. Don't put yourself at the end. You can feel and recognize, experience the win at the end in the beginning, so that gives you momentum. But don't wait until the end to get that momentum and be unprepared. So that's the counting on the countdown. There's certainty in that, and that's one of the basic human needs. And so there's also significance, because you are the one that has to do it then. And that creates an opportunity for motivation. And you can count on that. But the problem is, it's almost too late in the game if you haven't prepared. And that's where number 10 is, the focus gets easier. At that point, there is no other option. You focus or you fail. And that absolute sense of black and white clarity is comforting for people in a disturbing way. It's because, like, I know if I don't focus on this right now, I'm going to fail. It's just not going to work. Two things I want to leave you with, and one's kind of common sense, the other one's common sense, but it's a little disturbing. That's why I'm going to leave it with you. And that is, one, if you want to become better, become bigger, become greater, become faster, the better you get, the better you better get. It's like, if you're a business, this isn't all the time. Because of technology, this has changed a little bit. But if you're a business, the bigger you get, the more infrastructure you're going to have. The more you're going to have operational drag, is what a lot of people call it. So, like, meaning if you're a brick and mortar, like if I decide our training center wants to work with 1,000 people in person, I need to expand the square footage to safely accommodate for that amount of people. That means I'm going to have more operational drag. It's going to cost me more, right? It's okay, but it's going to cost me more. So it's going to affect everything else too. It's the same thing when you're like, let's say you're an animal. The bigger the animal, the more food you're going to have to fuel them. The bigger the dream, the more fuel you're going to have for that dream. The better you are at whatever it is that you're performing, the better you're going to have to get at investing with your effort and your time and any other resources to get there. Now, the last thing is what I'll like, I think it's probably going to be the most easy to remember, and that is, as kids, most people wanted an animal. They wanted a pet. If you lived in the country, and so you wanted some cute and fuzzy bunny, we'll just call it. So if you wanted a cute and fuzzy bunny, you got to clean the cage, right? There's some facts that come wrong with this bunny. It needs to have a clean cage. So you're going to have to do that. You're going to have to provide it water. You're going to have to provide it food. The other thing that's not really known by many people is they need attention. Bunnies need love. They need care. They need affection. They need that consistently, just like they do the water, just like they do the clean cage, just like they do the food. And if they don't have that, it's not going to go well. You're going to be sad because that bunny is not going to be with you for very long. Now, we've had bunnies before, and they passed away, and they're wonderful to have, and I enjoyed our experience when we had them. Bunnies, literally, and we did all the right things with the bunnies, it's still, they only live for so long, just like us. We're only here for so long. Your dreams only live for so long when you don't fuel them properly through hydration, through really getting rid of the clutter. That's like cleaning the cage. Get rid of the clutter. Get clear on what you need to be doing. Understand that you're going to have to consistently do this. It needs to be a habit. It's a habit of greatness. You need to understand that there's going to have to be some nourishment, some food there. And then you have to pay attention to this dream. You're going to have to give it some love. And this is where we've had some challenges with the youth of today because we've trained them out of preparing consistently. We've rewarded them for not preparing consistently sometimes. We've diminished the importance of testing something to make sure it works. We've put unfair pressure on certain things and alleviated it later when we felt bad about how that might make them feel after we've already done the damage for so long. I know this because I've done this. And so what I'm telling you today is if you have a young person in your life or you work with young people and you're developing young people, be careful what you're telling them. Be careful, even more careful, what you're showing them, and be the most careful with the way that you're training them. And if you're in a school system and you know that they're getting prepared for a test, understand that you prepare your best for something, but it's not the end of the story. That's the most important thing. It's not the last chapter in the book. It will not be the end of them, but it's an opportunity to practice something that will be helpful for their life, and that is how to prepare to perform, how to get clear on what's necessary, how to understand how to take a plan and then execute on it, and also how to feel good about what they've invested in, how to know that they're a part of a team, and also how to know that without self-sabotaging myself, without putting myself in the worst possible circumstance, I can still understand that other people have connection with me and they love me because I contribute and I'm significant in their life, and I'm important because I add opportunities of growth for the entire community. We don't have to be dramatic about things. We don't have to put ourselves in last minute momentum.